Hi everyone! Today I will be doing another picture from my personal challenge to color different dragons. But I thought that maybe it will be too boring for you just to watch me painting, so I decided that I will be answering a coloring tag which I invented. I called it or. So I will be asking myself questions and I hope that it will be interesting for you to listen to my answers. But first, let me explain you what I do on the screen. It's a picture from A.Koldareva, When Dragon Dreams, but you can also find the same design in one of the Coloring Haven magazines. My idea was to use limited amount of colors, so for the background I will be using only two watercolors from my White Night set, and one of them is definitely one of my favorites. The color is Indian gold, and if you take a dense pigment with just small amount of water, it looks like pale brown or dark orange. But if you use this paint diluted with a lot of water, it became close to lemon yellow. So you can get a variety of yellow hues from just one paint. And together with Indian gold, I will be using red ochre. As usual, I use my quill brush from Jackson's Art. And later, for the details, I will be using different mediums. First, I finally decided to use more of my alcohol-based markers. For the plant here, I used my Pro markers, and as I don't own a lot of yellow colors, I selected pale yellows to do the first layer of pigment, and later I added more contrast and color accents using different color pencils, both color softs and Prismacolors. First, I was quite reluctant to use alcohol-based markers, because you know that on the back page in this book we have small adorable dragons. But then I decided that as I used quite pale colors of markers, later I will be able to cover all bleeding through on the back page, doing dense background maybe with acrylic color, so I will be able to correct the back page if I want to color it. And now let's go to my coloring tag. First question is, do you prefer a book with one story or with random illustrations? And my answer is that I definitely prefer books which illustrate novels, stories, or where you can invent your own story behind. So I prefer when all illustrations are united by the story or character. So I definitely prefer books which dedicated to famous fairy tales, novels, TV series, or where I can invent my own story, like in The Search of the Light Bulb Burglar, where we don't have a written story behind, but we definitely can invent it and understand what artists try to tell us. I think that in this way I can pretend for myself that I am a real illustrator. Profession of illustrator was always so interesting for me, and I still love to see the different ways of different artists to illustrate the same story. Also, sometimes it helps to select colors easier if you want to color your illustration close to the source, to the book, to the fairy tale. I don't feel obliged to color the same character in the same way on all pages, like to color Ivy in the same dress throughout the book, or to color my detective from The Search of the Light Bulb Burglar in the same clothes. But it still helps me to choose the main color palette for the same book, and I try to maintain and to color all pictures in one style in order to get a finished book in one style in the end. I would like to add to my coloring book collection something dedicated to Tolkien books. I know that on the market there are several such books, but I had to make a choice because I wanted to be closer related to the Lord of the Rings, and I was also wanted to be of high paper quality because I definitely want to use watercolors in such book. Next question is, do you prefer to work on just one project at a time, or do you prefer to have several whips? My answer is that my optimal amount of whips is two or maximum three. Not one, not bigger than three, but two or three is just perfect for me. The first reason is I try to simultaneously work for the projects for my main channel and for my Patreon account. Then I try to work on pictures using different mediums. In this way, I don't get bored, or maybe I can use watercolors for one page and pencils for the other, or different pencils brand for two projects. Also, I already mentioned it a lot of times that for me it's easier to finish maybe 80% of one picture, then I have to put it aside for a day or two, and then when I return to it with my fresh look, with fresh eyes, it's easier for me to finish and don't mess it up on the last step. Maybe when I am close to the finishing of the page, I get too nervous in order to not mess it up, or maybe I started to be too tired to work on project, especially if page is quite complicated and very detailed, so I need a break. And in order not to waste time and to be able to produce videos, and also to get distracted and to color more books, it's easier for me if I work on two projects. Next question is, do you prefer detailed picture or simple one? I definitely prefer detailed pictures. First of all, I am not a huge fan of pictures where we have repeated elements, like mandalas or patterns or random objects. I definitely prefer pictures with subject, and I prefer detailed ones because usually it means that you don't have to think a lot about background or about filling in empty spaces. You just need to have enough of patience to color all the small details. And for me, it's much easier. It's easier for me to choose colors for each of the small elements and to create the well balanced color choice for the page. Then it's easier than inventing something for the background, trying to draw something. It's not my favorite thing, even if I get better at this during my last coloring year when I get more experience. But still, I prefer detailed pictures. Next question is pencils or watercolor? And my answer is pencils. You know that I prefer mediums which help me to save time and to color quicker, and it definitely is more related to watercolors, but still pencils are my first choice because they give me more control. Sometimes when you color with watercolors, due to inexperience or due to the paper quality, result could be not as satisfying as we imagined it when we started to color. And with pencils, it's easier for me to control process and to make changes during process if I am not happy with the beginning result. So, and pencils are also more versatile. I can use them in all coloring books. I can select pencil brand which is more suitable for the paper, and I can color picture, and even if I had to spend more time, I'm more sure in the final result if I use pencils. The only thing which I really hate to do is to color the whole background with pencils. I simply don't have enough patience to create beautiful shading, multiple layering, or to fill in empty background. That's why I try to combine mediums. But still, when I color with pencils, I feel more in control and it's easier for me. Next question. Do you prefer regular or watercolor pencils? And my answer is definitely regular pencils. I must confess that I almost never use watercolor pencils with water. I own Kohinoor Mondeluz watercolor pencils, also set of Marco Renoir watercolor pencils which I don't like at all. Then I own maybe 6 or 7 Faber-Castell art grip pencils which I like, and couple of Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer pencils, and that's all I have from watercolor pencils. And my favorite way of using them is when I already colored first layer with watercolors and I need to add color accents or to add contrast, then I do it with my watercolor pencils. I don't know why, but if I decided to use a water-based medium, I always go to my regular watercolors and not to watercolor pencils. It's easier for me to work with watercolors, and if I work with dry mediums, I prefer regular pencils because they are layered better and I can mix them better than watercolor pencils. Yes, watercolor pencils usually are softer, but I prefer better mixing and layering quality, so that's why I don't use my watercolor pencils so often as I use my regular ones. The next question is, do you prefer to plan main colors for the picture before you actually begin to color, or spontaneous choice of colors? And my answer is definitely planning colors. Maybe not for the whole picture, but at least for 80% of the whole page. For example, for this one, before I started to color, I already knew that I want to do it in limited amount of colors. I want background to be slightly darker than leaves of this succulent tree, and that I want to use different hues of yellow, that I wanted to add a little bit of turquoise blue to the stems, to the tree branches. So even before I started to color, I already could imagine almost the whole picture. The one thing which I wasn't sure yet is dragon, but I planned two color combos. They are totally different, but both color combos will be looking good on this color of the background. So I planned almost everything on this page even before I started to do it. And I definitely prefer not to start coloring any page if I am not sure in at least 80% of color choices for their picture, for main objects, for their focal point, and for the background. Next question is, do you prefer to plan the list of pages you want to color for the next month? Or do you prefer to select a page, a random choice on a daily basis, so again a spontaneous choice? Usually I plan about 60 or 70% of pictures which I want to color during the next month, especially pictures which I want to do for my Patreon page because they are more time consuming and more difficult for me to finish. But usually, apart from pictures which I added to my plans, I always have some spontaneous choices. First, I like to flip through of my books, and sometimes you can look at the page and you feel such a strong desire to color it, even if a minute ago you didn't had any plans and you even didn't like this page. It wasn't inspiring for you, and next moment you looked at it and you get some creative idea. The other reason why I get spontaneous color choices is when I get a new coloring book, I am always excited to color something from my new addition to coloring book collection, or when I need to test paper in the book in order to make a coloring book review. So in this way I always have a change in my plans. I am not a planning nerd, so I don't mind to be distracted from my coloring plans and to color something unexpected. It helps me to step out of my comfort zone, and after that, I feel more creative. But again, I am happy when I was able to maintain the majority of my planning coloring for the month. So it's 60 were 40%. Planet were unexpected colorings. Next question is, do you prefer to mix different pencils brand in one coloring project, or do you prefer to stay like one pencil braid for one picture? You know, when I started to color, I preferred to use just one pencils for one picture, and only recently I started to mix different pencils brand, especially Prismacolors and polychromases in my projects, and I really love this more and more. I think that different possibilities which give us different properties of these pencils, more opacity in Prismacolors and more of the softness, it helps me to get a better backgrounds, to fill in bigger spaces, and with harder polychromases it's easier for me to color small details or details like fur or wooden texture or hair or skin tones. And also with transparent polychromases it's easy to add additional color accents where the first layer of color is still visible, the transparent layer of polychromases. So I try to use better properties of different brands, but still I try to stay with only these two brands, mostly because I do my videos and I really love when people are able to follow me, and even if I use my different color softs, I know that a lot of people are not so happy because not many people like color softs or own them, so definitely the popularity of such projects are less than popularity of projects where I use prismas or polychromases. And honestly, I'm quite happy with all pictures where I can use these both brands. The only reason why I want to switch sometimes for my other sets like Derwent drawings or graphite or Mondeluz is when I start to feel that I tend to use the same colors in all my recent projects, so I start to repeat myself, and when I need to fresh view and new color patterns, it's easy if you switch to different pencils brand. I feel that I get better results if I use both Prismacolors and polychromacies in the same project, but I would like to hear a feedback from you. Is it harder for you to follow my videos where I use both brands, or it's the same for you? Because I think that a lot of pe- people they own both brands, so it won't be a problem to follow my videos if I mix pencils. Next question is, are you ashamed or proud of your hobby? Maybe I used too strong word for ashamed, but I wanted to touch a quite different subject of how other people feel about this your hobby, because sometimes our hobby is considered a little bit more suitable for children, and people still don't realize that it's a perfect and quite serious hobby for all ages and all genders of people. It's a perfect way to express your creativity and to be able to create something beautiful. And still, I know that a lot of people still are not very comfortable to tell that their hobby is coloring and that it's a serious and long time hobby. People are more reluctant to share it with their friends, not as like with knitting or stitching or sewing or cooking or gardening or other hobbies. So I hope that it's not like this for you. For me, I always was proud of my hobby and I never was ashamed. And fortunately, I was able to explain that it's quite a serious hobby for me, and this is kind of an art, even if we use already made a line art and we only add color, but it's still a kind of art and it's serious and nothing to be ashamed of. I was always quite fortunate that people close to me always were supporting and they liked everything I did as my hobby, including coloring. And for those who are not very familiar with modern coloring, who know about or going from their childhood, I try to show them my channel and my Instagram page and to show them all possibilities, what is modern coloring books and how it's possible to turn it into serious hobby and coloring pictures into art projects. So I'm quite proud of my hobby and I never felt ashamed that I color and don't draw and don't paint. I hope that it wasn't very boring. I thought that maybe it would be more fun to talk about some coloring aspects, some to answer some questions, than to just add some plain music. And if it wasn't too bad, I would do a second part of the same or tag. I thank you for watching and for listening. I will see you in the second part because we need to finish Dragon.